of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, starting off with citizen concerns, round one. Anything to be shared that is not already on the agenda? All right, going to move on to the approval of the agenda. I'll move it.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to the consent agenda, items 3 through 6 constitute a consent agenda for routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 3 is approval of minutes of the August 2nd, 2022 meeting. Item 4 is approval of claims. I did have a question on that. It was from the Sheriff's Department on a claim for $1,750 on a jail memo. Was there a reason that we didn't reach out to our own legal staff on that? Did we get that? Okay, so it's not here on this one? Okay, thank you. All right, item 5 from Human Resources, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions. And item 6 from Board Administration, approval of resolution thanking and commending Michael Weber for years of service with Woodbury County. 6B, approval of resolution thanking and commending Mark Pettit for years of service with Woodbury County. Item C, approval and resolution thanking and commending John Ford for years of service with Woodbury County. Item 6D is approval lifting tax suspension for AB. And E is approval of lifting tax suspension for petitioners who failed to recertify their income or income does not qualify for continued tax suspension. Any questions, anything on the consent agenda?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Taylor. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. We rocked through that too fast, I guess. How long is the drainage ditch district annual report? That
There it is.
Good evening.
This is item 10 on the agenda here. We're skipping ahead since it's not a set time.
Yeah, this is, I had open heart surgery 8 weeks ago yesterday. This is my first meeting out in the general public, so it's good to see you all and good to be back visiting with members again. You've got a big crowd, so I won't spend a lot of time. I'll talk about two things. First of all is an issue that seems to be perennial, and that is waters of the United States. Why it's important to you all when you act as drainage trustees is the worst case scenario on this is that it would put you in a situation as trustees of having to get a Clean Water Act permit every time you wanted to do a drainage repair or improvement. This is a ping pong ball that has gone back and forth from administration to administration. We started with one rule under President Obama, which got changed. President Trump came into office, the rule got changed again. President Biden comes into office and the rule gets changed again. So where we are right now is that they took public comment on the rule, which is expired. The public comment period was through April. We did comment. EPA reviews the comments and then puts forth a final rule, at which point they'll be sued, and some court somewhere will put a stay on it, and it will sit there until the stay is resolved. Again, what the rule does is define what kind of authority EPA has to regulate water and, indirectly regulate drainage districts. And I think you all understand that having to go to DNR to get a permit, along with 3,700 drainage districts that are waiting in line for the same thing would not be a very good situation and would not be a very good scenario. So we're going to watch that very closely and let you all know if there's anything you need to do. But for right now, we're in a holding pattern. Second thing I'll talk about is the state legislature this year. In the end result, we had a pretty quiet year, and that's not all bad. But I will let you know about a proposal that was working its way through the system called Senate File 500. The background of this bill is that we have a state senator who lived in a drainage district, which is never a good combination, and he was upset about some of the actions that his trustees, his supervisors took with respect to drainage in his district. And of course, his response to that was, we need to rewrite drainage law. So he went and got a retired engineer to come forward with a proposal that takes one page in the drainage statute and turns it into 11 pages of new laws and regulations. I read it several times. I frankly couldn't decipher it. I mean, it was so convoluted that I read through it and was trying to say, how am I going to explain this to membership if this passes? And I was not able to come up with a conclusion in terms of what they were actually trying to do. When a bill's proposed in the legislature, you have three choices as a lobbyist. You can do nothing and just stay silent because the bill doesn't affect you, or you can register in favor, you can register as no position, or you can register opposed. Now, we registered opposed. And I can tell you that there's 30 to 40 groups and individuals that are registered on the bill, and not one of those individuals or groups were registered in favor.
So did this make it out of subcommittee, committee to the floor, or is this
It did not make it out of subcommittee.
Okay, so this is dead in the water.
So far.
Okay.
But we're in the middle, this will be back. I have no doubt, knowing the state senator, that this proposal will be back and they'll be trying to work it again. It doesn't have legs under it right now, but we're going to make sure it doesn't grow those legs.
Well, John, we're going to probably have to jump back to our set time. It's 4:35 on
Okay.
that clock. It's 4:37 on mine, so.
Got it. I'm done unless you have any questions or,
All right.
okay, thank you all for
Yeah.
your time. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you, and hope the rest of your recovery goes well. So item 7, 4:35 set time from Board Administration, public hearing and sale of property parcel known as 508 Fifth Avenue in Hornick, Iowa. We are now in a public hearing. Anyone to speak for or against the sale of this property? It's not the time to make bids. It's whether or not you're for or against it.
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes 5-0. Now we're taking bids. Anyone who'd like to bid on 505 Fifth Avenue? I'm sure that's why everyone's here today, so.
508 Fifth Avenue.
Oh, yeah, 508 Fifth Avenue, sorry. I was expecting a record bid here today. We not, anybody? Okay, come on up to the microphone. Tell us your name.
Your first time, so.
Oh, sure, no, it's,
Shay Gillespie.
and what's your bid there?
500.
$500?
Scott Mitchell, City of Hornick Mayor, 525.
You have another?
600.
All right.
650.
700.
750.
All right.
Anybody else out there want to make a bid?
This is in your personal capacity, right, Scott?
Yeah, I'm doing this as mayor.
Okay,
This is when I'm being mayor right now,
okay.
so.
All right, well, seeing no other bids, I'll move to, so it's City of Hornick,
Yep, City of Hornick.
move to sell to City of Hornick for $750.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Passes 5-0. Moving on to our 440 set time, item 8 from Secondary Roads. A is motion, well, this isn't the set, this is just the received county staff report here.
As requested by the board, Dan and I have worked on an amendment to ordinance number 56.
Well, this is 8A staff report, is that?
Yes. As we were working on that, we did research on the setbacks for other counties and also looked at research that's available on the internet as far as what type of setbacks are appropriate for wind generation units, what type of distances they might throw either ice or debris if a blade would break. We have a number of studies that we collect with that. I have that information to present to the board. Current ordinances in Iowa range between 1,000 and 1,600 feet. We were able to locate, I think, 12 counties that have ordinances in place that address wind ordinances. We looked at some of our neighboring counties, Lincoln County, South Dakota at 2,640 feet. Union County, South Dakota prohibits commercial generation. McCook County goes with 3 times the height of the blade. Yankton County is 1,320 feet. Looking for some criteria with how counties came up with 1,000 or 1,250 or 1,600. It's been suggested in some of the literature that they just did what their neighbors did, or they followed an industry recommendation, or they were just strictly looking at the noise. Most of the studies, or most of the information provided by manufacturers, I was able to find something from Siemens and from GE that both make the generators, indicated that once you got beyond 300 meters, which is roughly 1,000 feet, that the noise level was down to under 50 decibels. That was where I was able to find probably the best justification for that criteria. As far as throwing debris or ice on some of the smaller generation units, 660 watts and under, some of those were within that 1,000-foot umbrella if they threw off ice or other debris. As you got into some of the larger wind towers, if you go to the second sheet that I passed out, the Rutgers study found 1,700 feet. That was, I think, based on a 1.5 megawatt generator that would have destruction of a blade, how far it might chuck pieces of that blade at the radial speed that it would be going at the time of failure. There were a number of studies in Europe. They've been at this much longer than we have. Some of those ranged up to 1,935 feet was one. That was also for a 1.5 megawatt generator. Ice throws were determined, a study done in Sweden, about a 784-foot throw for that ice shedding off of the blade. Downwind, it could get up to 1,148 feet, right within 100 feet of what our limitation is. Another study in Denmark indicated that on the largest, taller towers, 2,296 feet, when that blade would be destroyed and break. we have another one from Department of Mechanical Engineering, University of the Pacific. Their recommendation was roughly 3.5 times turbine height. Again, it would depend on what was coming at us with the turbine, but it would still fall into the range that was verified by some of the other studies. My search was not exhaustive. We did get responses from 26 counties of the 99. Of those, 14 do not have an ordinance that addresses wind generation. The remaining counties do, so that's basically the gist of my report. I don't know if Dan has anything to add to it.
I don't at this point.
But we do have, copies of the study. They are available online if the board needs specific information. I just summarized in what the recommendations were for setback distances. To me, it seems prudent that you look at how far it could throw one if you're looking to, I think the thing that we need to look at is assuring that people are safe in their residences from flying debris should one fail. It's not frequent, but it does occur. There have been failures both in Europe and I believe some in Oklahoma that have made the paper. Lightning strikes occur and occasionally damage one. I think we've all seen video of the one that makes the nice little pinwheels of smoke as it's beginning to tear itself apart. Again, if the board wants to protect the residences, the 2,500 feet proposed would be at the beyond the limit where we should have reasonable assurance that with the current technology out there, with the current size, as some of this is size-based on these towers, with the current sizes, we would put occupied residences outside any throw zone. I guess that's all I got to add. We're available for questions.
I'd move to receive the county staff report.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Now in a public hearing for an ordinance to amend portions of Woodbury County Ordinance Number 56, an amendment to modify Section 6.1A wind turbine setback requirements in the ordinance regulating commercial wind energy conversion systems in unincorporated Woodbury County.
My name's Larry Philippi. I've talked to most of you on the board over a phone conversation, and I can say most of the conversation's been pretty good. I'm a landowner. I live 4 miles west and a half mile north of Anthon. First, I want to thank the board members. I think you do a decent job most of the time, and I honestly mean that. I recognize the fact your job's not easy. Having said that, the vote you make today and the following weeks will change the lives and this county for decades, if not forever, and not for the better. I pretty much live in the middle of the proposed wind farm. It is absolutely a beautiful place, with farm ponds, rolling hills, wildlife to include bald eagles. It has been mentioned, we want to protect landowner rights. Are you for landowner rights, or are you for the revenue? If you say landowner rights, then you need to look at both sides of the fence. You have rights until you start annoying your neighbor, just like in the city or town where you live. And absolutely, it is also about the revenue until you affect your neighbor's property values. Who in their right mind would want to live among these towering giants that cast shadows, that make noise, that cause stress and anger, and other health-related issues that currently right now we don't know, there aren't enough studies, but common sense tells you that it's not healthy. Not to mention the negative environmental impact these machines have. There's research out there, there's studies, we bury blades in cornfields. We don't recycle these things, it's not cost effective. But we're being told that. Do the research before you look at your bank account. We all pay taxes, and we both have the right to live in Woodbury County peacefully. Interesting and not surprising at the same time, I have found if you live on a golf course and if you own land out in the county, wind turbines are a wonderful thing. Why is that? Because it is not in their backyard. I've also found that if you live out of state and own land in Woodbury County, wind turbines are a beautiful sight. Go to Ida County, Buena Vista, Wayne County in Nebraska. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, beautiful about those counties. They destroyed any beauty the county once had to offer. They are now industrial sites that bleed the greed of government-subsidized, multi-billion-dollar climate change package that is destroying our way of life here in the Midwest, the heartland and the breadbasket of America. I guess we'll find out at the end of this meeting and over the next couple of weeks where we all stand. And I'll end with this. If you vote for the 1,250-foot setback and not the 2,500-foot setback, having never taken the time to research and/or actually spend time in a wind farm, and I'm not just talking about driving through one.
Can you wrap her up there for me there, Larry? You're over 3 minutes.
Sir, I have one paragraph left if I could finish. If you're not being honest with yourself, your family, your community, and the people in this room, you will have basically said you don't care about the majority of your constituents. You think money is the fix-all, and you could not be more wrong. The only winners here are the power companies, and it's not REC, World Electric, out in the countryside. It's Warren Buffett. Thank you.
My name's Daniel Hare, 2889 Humboldt Avenue, Hornick, Iowa. You guys have gotten to know me past month. I first called every one of you beginning of July when I found out about this wind project in the county. Needless to say, I wasn't happy about it. And when I talked to you guys, you know, I knew where you stood. You all told me that, well, we've got this ordinance passed, we never heard from anybody, and so it's just going to be left where it is. I said, you guys haven't heard from anybody because nobody in the county knows about it. I'm here to say that the county is starting to know about it. Woodbury County is here with me, and I have right here in my hands over 720 signatures from residents of Woodbury County. And it states here, we, the undersigned, are concerned that current wind turbine setbacks allow construction too close to homes and businesses and urge Woodbury County supervisors to amend the setbacks for wind turbines to 2,500 feet or greater. I would like to submit that officially here.
Move to receive.
Record. Second.
I also spent the last
One
week
sec.
at the Wood.
Motion to second, or motion to receive by Taylor, second by Radig. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's 5-0. Go ahead.
I also spent the last week at the Woodbury County Fair, running a display booth with a whole bunch of help from concerned residents and landowners and farmers in Woodbury County, you know, bringing attention to this issue. Over that whole hot week, we were busy. I had people coming in from out of county telling us that you guys are on the right track. You don't want those things here. I'd have people come in and said I was an acreage buyer who passed on a farm or farm acreage that we wanted to put horses on and looked at until they saw the turbine in the backyard behind the trees. They passed on the acreage. How do you think that acreage owner feels about his property values? We had an Illinois farmer stop by and said that he had 7 turbines on a farm of his up in Illinois where the setbacks from Residences there were a full mile. He said, even though the money seemed good at the time, he would never do it again because of the destruction of his land that ensued after the turbine's construction. He had tile drainage destroyed, and he had farmland compacted that he said would never be in production again. We had a family from Spain come by even. Couldn't hardly speak any English, but they understood the wind tower sign next to someone's house with a red X through it on one of the signs out front of the booth. In as many words as they could say, they looked at us and said, "No, too many of them in Spain. You guys don't want them." We also had someone who came in from Woodbury County who had told us that she had signed a turbine contract, and she was now there to sign the petition because she changed her mind. I can say with confidence that 99% of the people who came through our display at the fair that signed that petition also told me, we don't want them here at all. And I can count on one hand out of that whole fair the number of people that walked by, shook their head at me and said we're for the project, and went like this, on one hand. I'm a fifth-generation farmer, and my young son at home, who's 5, is going to be the 6th. And I'm asking you guys, don't destroy this county for my lifetime and his. Money is not everything. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Fritzmeyer. I live here in Sioux City on Leach Avenue. And I think the wind turbines are beautiful. I think they've done a lot for our country, and I hope that you will continue to welcome the thoughts of the people here in Woodbury County, because this is important. It's an important issue. And I thank you for having these hearings and having them for 3 weeks in a row, because that's going to be important. I appreciated I saw your comment, Mr. Raddick, in the paper that if this 1,250-foot setback is increased, or even doubled, as some people have proposed, that it would effectively kill wind power here in Woodbury County. Right now, the company that gives us power here in Woodbury County, all of us, Mid-American, has over 35 wind farms.
You got to speak into the microphone so people
Okay,
can
I'm
hear you.
sorry,
It's on the
I'm
record.
sorry.
Thanks, Bob.
Mid-American has over 35 wind farms here in Iowa, and there are farm families who are benefiting from that. It's not about the money primarily. What this is about the future of our children, I have a son.
Guys, let's be respectful.
I have a son. I have 2 grandchildren, and I want to see them have a clean energy future. I think we have an opportunity here to help them. I appreciated your comment too, Mr. Ong, when I read that in the paper, that you were asking, why is this even being brought up? That was a good question. I did some research on the noise that these wind turbines put out. And at 300 meters, which is, 3 football fields away, and that's even not as far as the setback is now, the sound that they make is like an air conditioner. So they sure aren't going to hurt anybody's ears. And as far as annoying goes, I live on a street now where there's being some construction done in my neighborhood. I have to put up with some annoying noise. I have to put increasing traffic coming by. And that's part of my responsibility as a citizen. I accept that. And so there will be some annoying things that would come about with some changes with these wind turbines. However, I'm hoping that you supervisors will make a good decision and use your common sense and think about our future in Woodbury County, the future that can be a better one.
Good afternoon, supervisors. Adam Jablonski, Mid-American Energy. So I'll try to stick to basically what a 2,500-foot setback would do and what's workable there. I know that we're touching on a lot of subjects here that I can answer over time if you'd like. But to put it bluntly, and I think with the engineer's drawings, your engineer's drawings before have confirmed this, is a 2,500-foot setback would just, wipe out any buildable land in the area. It turns that map completely red, and it doesn't allow any landowners to use their property for wind facilities. So we have been developing the Siouxland Wind Farm since December of 2021 under the current wind ordinance that was just adopted a year ago. And we thought that was a pretty thorough process back then. So, curious what changed since then. It's a pretty thorough ordinance with many setbacks, decommissioning agreements, road use agreements, and having looked at a lot of these, it's very thorough and it covers a lot, and there's a lot of protections in there. So touching on what most counties have, I think this was mentioned before by the engineer's report, but most counties do have a range of setbacks from about 1,000 feet to 1,500 feet. There's obviously some outliers in there. Some are a little bit more, some have zero, zero zoning in the county where we've built at before. So there are some outliers, but that's the general range. And if you look at what's acceptable, the Iowa Environmental Council put out a siting study, and they recommended, to balance interests is what they say, to let landowners use their property for what they want and protect the interest of the community. They recommended between 1,000 and 1,250 feet in that. Now, what could Mid-American work with? I think the engineer put a report together, a map that showed 1,500 feet. I think 1,500 feet to 1,600 feet is workable. So if the county is considering increasing that and still allowing landowners to use their property for wind facilities and realize those benefits, that's something we could work with, 1,500 to 1,600 feet setback from dwellings. But I think just keep in mind that that's just one setback. My colleague will show you some examples later of Woodbury County sections of basically what's left after you apply a 2,500-foot setback and all the other setbacks that are in the county ordinance and those that Mid-American considers on top of that for reasonable siting. So there's many more setbacks. And I say one thing that comes up is sound and shadow, and we get that. People don't want to experience that, and we want to make sure we minimize that on all the residents as well. We do sound and shadow studies as well. So we apply those minimum setbacks, but that doesn't mean we're right up to that minimum setback. It may be pushed farther away just to make sure they're sited reasonably to minimize the sound and the shadow to be consistent with what most counties have across the state. So fortunately, wind is not new in Iowa. Wind would be new to Woodbury County. We've got, there's about 6,000 wind turbines in Iowa, in about half the counties in Iowa. So this isn't something new, it's not experimental. We know the issues, we site around them, environmental, noise, shadow, all of that. We do responsible siting. There's more than 50,000 across the US for 30 plus years. So fortunately, we know the concerns, we site around those. To close it out, if you look at the setback maps, a 2,500 foot setback would effectively allow somebody a half mile away to decide what you can and can't do with your property. That's effectively what that does. 2,500 feet is just shy of a half mile. So a 2,500 foot setback would allow someone a half mile away to prohibit what a landowner can use their property for. Thank you.
I'm Mason Fleener. I live south of Ida Grove, 4 miles. I've got 40 windmills right around me. I've got almost 60 days of blade flickers in my house. The closest windmill is 2,000 feet, and that's way too close. I've got a bunch of them a mile away. You can hear them from my house. Mid-America, this new contract you have, do you pay more for landowners that sign up if it's closer than 2,500 feet? Do you pay those, your tenants, or what do you ever call them?
I could answer, I'm not sure you're supposed to directly come forward, but I'm
Okay. I heard that they're paying for people that have windmills on their land, under 2,500 feet, they're paying them $300 to $500 a year more. But the people that don't sign up for windmills don't get nothing. Is that fair? So even Mid-America's admitting that they're 2,500 feet isn't enough. And you guys looked into the taxes you're gonna receive? That's a joke. Typical joke, and the state did that for you. You didn't have anything to do with it. I think Ida County windmills, 120 of them been there 3 years, 80 of them been there 2 years. Last fall, they paid $179,000 in taxes. Wow. I would much rather have you raise my taxes. I own 1,100 acres in Idaho County. I'd much rather have you raise my taxes $5 and forget the windmills. It's a joke. They are a joke. I got a neighbor that his horse was drinking out of his water when the windmills come in, static electricity or something. He had to put a different water line in. He couldn't fix it. And these wind blade flickers, you're in your house, you shut your eyes, and they don't go away. They're still there. You got to about go to your basement to get rid of them. And it's they last between 5 and 20 minutes. The 2,000-foot windmill, they can last up to 20 minutes. And what do? Just sit there and look at them. I got a pond right by my house. I used to fish in it all the time. I can't stand the noise. Today it was a quiet day, kind of. The wind didn't blow. Today it was like a deer noise. Grr, grr, grr. Some days at night, it's just whoom, whoom. These windmills are huge. I mean, I don't mind, put them on your land, but keep your noise and your sound on your side of the fence. That's what I say. Thank you.
William Doherty, Mid-American Energy. Like to submit some engineering drawings to the board.
Move to receive.
Second.
You may have already have some of these. They are the engineering drawings that your GIS team put together.
1 second. Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt to receive. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Now go ahead, Will.
So just kind of briefly touching on what my colleague had already touched on. So 2,500 feet, obviously you guys went through an extensive discussion last year with the ordinance. Those engineering drawings put together by your GIS team and your engineering department were a part of that process. I believe that there was several iterations of the drawing from 600 feet up to 2,500. I took 3 of the most pertinent, which are the existing setback 1,250, setback in between 1,250 and 2,500, sitting at about 1,500 feet, and then the 2,500, which was in the motion by the board. So as my colleague touched on, those pretty much depict that 2,500 feet is extremely prohibitive for any wind energy in the county. It would pretty much all but eliminate any wind energy from Woodbury County altogether. And that would be against approximately 59 landowners who have signed up, or easements who have signed up with us throughout the county so far. We have about 11,400 acres under agreement recorded with the county to date. That's only growing. A couple weeks ago, we had 2,500 acres signed up by about 5 agreements all in 1 week. So discussions are being had throughout the county with a lot of landowners. There's a lot of support for the project, albeit not vocal. I know a lot of people wouldn't want to put themselves in this position to voice their opinion on a matter such as this, which is understandable. But we've been reaching out to people since December of 2021. We sent invites out to 500 landowners in our initial project boundary, and we continue to send out informational packets to landowners that would be in the project boundary, along with a 2-mile boundary around that boundary as well. Just kind of giving them information from many studies that we have in our records to try to better inform the public on what wind energy is and what we do here at Mid-American Energy. For the project, we'd be looking at approximately a 40-year life of the project, which is pretty standard for wind projects across the state of Iowa. Over that life of the project, it'd be about $150 million in taxes that would go to the county, averaging about $4 million a year over the course of those 40 years. And then just kind of quickly touching on those drawings that we had put together for you by Snyder. We took 3 random samples of sections throughout the county. We applied various layers to them, showing all county setbacks, including the 110% tip height from adjacent properties, the 1,250 from any neighboring dwellings, along with the 2,500 from neighboring dwellings to kind of show you that difference that would make in the county. So the first one, sheet 1 of 1, or I guess sheet 1, on the front. So on the right-hand side, you'll see in the legend at the very bottom, the second line from the bottom, has buildable area 1,250 feet from an occupied residence. In that section, that's about 177 acres that would have been buildable, applying all setbacks in the county under the current ordinance. When you change the ordinance to 2,500 feet, that 177 acres gets diminished to 1.7 acres. And as my colleague spoke to before this, that is before we go through any of our dozens of other studies that also limit us in where we can build. Sound, shadow, geotechnical, birds and bats, several environmental studies as well. Sheet 2 and 3 are more of the same. Sheet 2, 88 acres. When you apply a 1,250-foot setback, that gets diminished down to 8 prior to any other studies or surveys being done. The last sheet has approximately 95 acres with the original ordinance and gets reduced down to 4 acres of buildable land prior to any studies. So I'll be back up here in a little bit to touch on a project overview in more detail, but I just wanted to submit that. Thank you.
Mark Nelson, 3773 180th Street, Correctionville. Since we're on the topic of turbines and all the economic impact and amazing growth it brings to the county, I would like to submit a map for the supervisors to look at.
Move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Take her away.
So on this map, I'll explain it to you. We have simply the state of Iowa with its 99 counties outlined, shaded in an array of colors from dark purple to dark brown. This map is straight from the U.S. Census Bureau from the 2020 census. Any county with a dark purple color lost population. There's a scale bar at the top that shows you what % of the population they lost. Any county that's brown gained population. The black dots represent the 10 counties in Iowa that have the highest population. Woodbury is 6th. All the other dots, except for the green ones, represent commercial wind farms. I find it interesting that where the highest density of commercial wind farms are, in those counties, they suffered some of the highest losses of population since the 2010 census. The green dots are mostly residential, single unit turbines, most likely farms, schools that put up their own to generate their own electricity. I also find it interesting that the counties that grew don't have wind farms anywhere near them or in the county. In fact, none of the counties in the top 10 in the state of Iowa for population have a standalone wind farm currently in the county. Woodbury would be the first. And there's a reason for that, because of our population density. You look at the counties around us that are building wind farms or have them, Cherokee, Plymouth, Ida, Sac, Buena Vista. If you combine the populations of those 5 counties, they have roughly 3/4 of the population of what's in Woodbury. It's important that we talk about this because as we've done a lot of this research on setbacks, you'll find that a lot of the counties that these are built in have populations all over the country. I'm not talking just in Iowa, all over the country. Hardly any get above 15 or 20,000 people. I mean, a lot of them are very rural counties, and that's fine. But we're not a rural county. We're a very urban county. I understand that we have one of the highest per capita of acreages of any county in the state, which means we have a lot of people living in the rural area. I would say that we potentially have more people living in the rural area of Woodbury County than a lot of bigger counties have for total population. And that's important that we understand that, and that's what this map is for. The wind farm data came straight from the Iowa Economic Development Authority's website. So I just want to let you know that all of my data came from either Iowa Economic Authority or the U.S. Census Bureau on this map. I could fill this room with people that from 1,200, 50, 1,500, 1,700 feet say they hear wind turbines all day and night in their home, just like this gentleman from Ida County, wherever he was from. We could fill this room. I just don't think it's fair that we have the noise there. The other thing, as a person who farms with livestock and with outbuildings, we heard from the engineer, the catapult zone where these things can break off. And ironically, on my way back from Des Moines today at the Webster City exit on Highway 20, I met a turbine that was broken half on a truck heading down the highway. And you could tell it was broken half because it was severed and all mangled, you know. So It does happen. And I think that nobody should be allowed to toss something on their property that could just, completely damage a home, kill a person, kill livestock, wreck a roadway, hit a car. I think that at a minimum, we have to respect that. So, thank you.
Roger Wilson, 1610 Jasper Avenue. Just a couple things to think about. One of the reasons that I've been on a farm for 50 years is I like the peace and quiet. And the one gentleman said, well, it'd be like listening to an air conditioner 24/7, 365 days a year. That's not what I call peace and quiet. Also, I'd like you to consider that my understanding there's 80 truckloads of cement that are permanently on Iowa Woodbury County farmland that will never be in production, that is permanently out of production. And we talk about the environment and green and all that, and we're talking about all these chunks of cement that will be permanently on somebody's land. The contract is 40 years for me. I'll be long gone and dead. My kids will inherit that, so I encourage you to vote for the longer distance, 2,500. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Doyle Turner, 2738 200 Street, Mobile, Iowa. I was here 2 weeks ago, and I've been asked by 60 different companies to speak to their boards. And I can tell you that I was very impressed with the quality of the discussion and the thoughtfulness, regardless of how you voted. But one of the things that really struck with me was when Justin Wright gave his reasons for voting the way he did. He said it very eloquently, and I'm not going to say it nearly as good as you did, but you said you did not want to take away the landowner's right to choose. And I saw Matthew Ung at the same time nod yes, but you'll notice I sit in the back corner when I come here so I can kind of see what people are doing. I saw people who I know disagreed with your vote who were going yes. I think that's your common ground. Your common ground is that we want the landowner to have the choice. So, but that isn't just a yes. You had an engineer that came up here and basically told you that you have a catapult zone of around, that they've already measured of 1,935 feet. Well, most of our ground is in quarter sections. So if we stick the turbine in the middle of the quarter section, that means that it's 1,320 feet from somebody else's property. It's also 1,320 feet from the right-of-way. You guys deal with the right-of-way all the time. You deal with roads. It's a big part of your time. It's a big part of our budget. You're protecting the homeowner, the home. Well, as a farmer, the home is really pretty insignificant. I've done ag finance for 25 years. The vast majority of farmers never put their home on their financial statement. You want to know why? Because it's insignificant. We have things out there that are worth way more than what our home is. And we want those things protected also. So when it comes down to the right to choose, I should have the right to also choose no. So that zone of where it can catapult things into should not be on my property. And I also wonder if somebody's driving by and this thing flies apart, I mean, you protected the homeowner, but you didn't protect the guy driving by? I mean, that seems like a dream come true for a trial attorney, I'm wondering how you can do this without incurring liability to the board and to our county.
Bear with me, I'm not a public speaker, but my name's Stacy Hare, 2889 Humboldt Avenue, Hornick, Iowa. Every time I travel somewhere in Iowa, I always think to myself or tell my husband how thankful I am to be back in Woodbury County and how beautiful it is without all those wind turbines. Never did I think a day would come where we'd have to worry about them coming into our county. This affects our family, our friends, and so many we know. To not have a choice and to be forced to deal with these for our lifetime and our children's lifetime, it's unfair and it's not right. So many of these turbines that are potentially going up that will be around us are from people that don't even live close to us or have to worry about even seeing these turbines. Now, how fair is that? They don't have to deal with the constant noise, the shadows from the blades, and the multiple negative effects that come along with these awful things. It's truly all about the money to anyone that signed up for these turbines. Some things in life are more important than money. You all have the power to help us families out here. Please do the right thing, increase the setback to 2,500 feet or greater. Thank you.
Hello, I am David Cooper, 1212 Franklin Avenue, Mobile. And I guess that I must be one of the ignorant ones. I plan on putting a tower within 1,250 feet of my house. And it's not just about the money. The whole country needs wind turbines and solar power and everything else. And if you don't think we do, then you're not appreciating our beautiful weather that the whole country has been enjoying with the global warming situation. I guess that's about all I have to say.
Hello there. I am Chuck Woodman, and I'm over by Bronson. When you go down 141, about 8 miles where the Les Hills start, I'm amazed this discussion even takes place because the Les Hills are a sovereign deal that we're not supposed to destroy. I've got 8 acres that's totally straight up. You could set this building in it. It is not going to be destroyed, my personal feelings. And we take good care of that brome. We've got another 40 out there. We call it the anthill. And if somebody went out and put a tower on that anthill, what a destruction. There's another mound of dirt to the north of Peter Woodman's house. This is totally wind-blown dirt. And this is something that should never be done, these towers on land like this. So we should definitely keep them out of certain areas. Thank you.
My name is Ryan Vandermolen. I live on 1233 Buchanan Avenue here in Sioux City. And I live outside city limits on a smaller acreage. And I would like you guys to know that I am definitely in favor of the setback of 2,500 feet or more. And I just would like to say, I definitely echo, what the Hares have said, the words of what Mr. Wilson over here has said. I live on just a little over 3 miles of gravel, and I know that it's been an ongoing issue for us residents that just live outside of Sioux City with the issues with the roads and the upkeep with them and a lot of them issues. And as Mr. Wilson pointed out here, imagine all of the truckloads of cement that is going to be using these roads and all of the other equipment and what kind of pounding that's going to take and taxpayer money that's going to have to be used to repair these roads. The school buses have to get through and trying to go over these ruts and different things. That's one major concern that I have. And also too, I consider myself an avid outdoorsman. I love to hunt, I love to fish, and a lot of the conservational concerns with a lot of the birds and other migratorial animals that we have along the Missouri River. This is a very unique area that we live in. And Woodbury County has some wonderful public hunting grounds. Not all of us have vast amounts of land that we can go hunt and fish on. And there's been a lot of programs like Woodbury County Pheasants Forever that has put a lot of time and money into fundraisers. People have donated their time to really provide places for people like myself and other family members to use, to go train dogs and just enjoy the outdoors. And a lot of these residents have neighboring farmland adjacent to these public grounds. And they also, many of them allow us to, with permission, to hunt and fish on some of their farm ponds. And I just have a lot of concerns with this closer setback. And, as mentioned too, I think a lot of the numbers that were provided with how densely populated this rural area really is, and I can definitely vouch for that, especially where I live. So that is why I am in favor for the setback of 2,500 feet or more. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Brenda Holtz. Our address is 135 West Creek Drive, Lawton, Iowa. And we were asked to put a wind turbine on our farm at 1,250 feet. And I think that it should be up to Mid-America and each farmer as to the decision whether it should be on your farm. There's a lot of people that have already signed this contract, and they are very happy, very satisfied with this 1,250 feet. And I also agree with Keith Radding. In the Mobile Record, he had written that I'm not sure why this should even be a decision really up to the supervisors. If a person works, they own their farm, they have worked hard for it, it should be their decision on what they think is right for them and right for their farm. And I think it should be with Mid-America and the farm owner themselves. And as far as all this wind that people are talking about and the noise, our son is a licensed electrician. He has worked underneath these. If you first look at a wind turbine, you would think it's a gush of wind. It's not. And as far as noise, there's a hum. There isn't a gush of noise. And he should know he works underneath them. So I'm not sure where all this others is coming from. So again, I truly believe that it should be the decision between Mid-America and each farm owner. And so I hope all of you agree with me.
All right, anything from the board here?
Oh, we haven't.
Oh, sorry.
I'm David Dietrich. I live at 2651 Franklin Avenue, Hornick, Iowa, just north of Hornick in the Loess Hills there. I wasn't aware of this at all. I saw the article in the Mobile Record just about last week. Thanks to these guys for pointing this stuff out at the Woodbury County Fair. And I believe there should have been some town hall meetings on this, you know, to let more of the county know about this, so we are aware. It affects a lot of people. So first, I'm not for the windmills in Woodbury County at all, period. But second, worst case, 2,500 feet, you know, I hope y'all would vote for that. I've done a little research in the past couple of days since the county fair. I looked at valuation of properties, and I hope you all have as well. I have an article from the Forbes here about do wind turbines lower property values. And basically, I did read several other articles as well, but it looks like anywhere from 20 to 50% on property values. I'm not for that at all, because if I'd ever look at selling or, you know, anything like that, I'm not for living next to a wind turbine either. So, but, you know, there's 5 sources on here. If you guys would like to look at that, you're more than welcome to have that if you would like. I know there's lots of other articles out there as well. I looked at a few different ones. I looked at one from CNN, but none of them state any numbers or anything like that. But I don't know if the county's considered that, you know, what the reduction in property values would be. You know, yes, you're going to get revenue from the wind turbines, but I'll be out there stomping my feet about, you know, a 50% reduction of my property valuation for my tax purposes And I'll let anybody else know in the county that as well. I'll go out and talk to them as well. So that's really all I have. I just wish there would have been more heads up on this and more people would have known about it, because I think there'd be a lot more people out in the county not in favor of this.
My name's Elizabeth Widman. I spoke 2 weeks ago, and I just had a couple things I wanted to add to what I said last time. I have my daughter with me now, and she got married and lives in Sioux City right now. And she said, you know, I would really love to have 5 chickens on my property in Sioux City, but they don't allow me to do that because they are thinking about the Sioux City community as a whole, and you know, she would like to bring the farm to her place, but you know, she lives in town, they have certain things. We live out in the country because we think it's beautiful. Our family farms, on my side, it's 5th generation, my husband's side was 4th generation, and putting up wind turbines, especially close to people's property, fundamentally changes the look and what happens in the county. And as I said last time, I just believe it's your responsibility to keep the integrity of what it's like to live in the country. And my husband passed away a couple years ago, and one thing he always told our sons, I don't know if I'll get through this, when they're working on the farm, was that you leave the farm better after you're done with it. And I just don't believe that if we put a lot of these wind turbines up in Woodbury County that we are leaving the county better. And just urge you to vote for the 2,500.
Why don't we just take that phone call if you want to comment on there? All right. Sorry. But there's somebody on the phone. We'll just.
Yes, this is Maria.
Maria Runquist, go ahead.
I'm been listening to all the meeting. Just to remind all of you, you are a public servant. The citizens are the boss. Listen to the landowners. They have more than 700 signatures opposing the wind turbine. Listen to your constituents. Let the landowners decide if they want a wind turbine. Now, the Board of Supervisors is going to do the decision whether or not they're going to approve that. If you're going to vote on this issue, I agree with the landowners, 2,500 feet or more. They have the right as a landowner. Listen to the landowners. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Come on up.
My name is Bev Zener, and I live at 2294 Hancock, and my husband Mort is here as well. We are nearing the end of our farming career. Certainly intend to live our ground in our family and continue the heritage of farming in Iowa with local meaning of the owner. I appreciate the fact that we can live and work and own our farm. The one thing that has just been touched on, but not very much today, is that when we bought our farm in 1979, we were bidding against a lot of outside money, a lot of outside money. And I just want you to know that that issue has only increased. And if farmland value drops, don't you think more outside money and corporate farming will be coming to our area, and less local control and less young farmers that can get into the business? Because it is a business. So I want you to really stop and think that it isn't necessarily every farm owner that lives next door, because they may live far, far away. Somebody else commented about the golf course. But those of us that live on our farms, it matters. And the more and more farms that are owned by outside money, we will lose our local control. Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name's Amber Woodman. I live at 1847 Old Highway 141 by Sergeant Bluff. I'd just like to encourage you guys today to increase the setback to 2,500 for many of the reasons that have already been stated here. We should have a right for what we do on our own property, but when what we do on our own property affects other people, that needs to be taken into consideration. I know our acreage is surrounded by farmland owned by other people than us, and the decisions they make affect what our home is like. And they've spent a lot of talk about the noise and the ice being flung, but have any of you guys ever driven through a wind farm at night? What do you see? You see red blinking lights on all sides of you, and they don't blink in unison, and there's always one that's off. Would you like to have that in your own home, sitting in your living room, whatever you're doing, playing a game with your kids, and your windows are like this all the time? That affects people more than 2,500 feet away from the windmill. And just another thing that hasn't been touched on a lot here, and I don't have the numbers to back it up, but I'm sure Daniel had a lot of it in the booth at the Woodbury County Fair, so I'm sure he could back me up on this, but so-called, and I'm an engineer by training in school, so when I look at something and they say this is green energy, maybe after the windmill is in place and it is running, then maybe it is being net green, but all of that stuff had to be manufactured somewhere, out of something. All of that had to be trucked somewhere. We've all seen the trains and the semis hauling the big turbine blades down the road. What about all the gas that goes into that? And I don't know how many of you remember in Texas, it was like a year and a half ago, they got that cold snap like they've never had before. What happened to their wind turbines? They froze up. People had no heat, people had no electricity. How did they get the wind turbines going again? I remember this being kind of a joke. They took petroleum-powered helicopters and they sprayed petroleum products onto the windmill so that they could be unfrozen and they could start spinning again and make electricity. I encourage you guys to look into that if you're thinking this is green energy and good for our country and good for our future. I have my future here with me here tonight, and I would like to see them grow up in Woodbury County in a very special place, the Loess Hills. The only place like that. The only other place is in China, and they're destroying it from what I understand. Let's not destroy our Loess Hills, please. Thank you.
Glenn Eckert, 1726 Garner Avenue, Lawton. And we have an acreage. We purchased it approximately 35 years ago. We purchased it to get peace and quiet, enjoyment. Our neighbors are great. They farm, they spread manure, we smell it. That's part of living in the country. That's part of their lifestyle. And it's part of the lifestyle that my wife and I and my family grew up with. I don't want to see windmills in Woodbury County. I've gone up to my brother-in-law's on the border of, I have some difficulty talking, please bear with me. Cherokee County, and all you see is windmills. If you look at the welcome signs that Iowa has put out, smokestacks and silos, how many silos do you see anymore? That used to be a thing sticking up and everybody worried about it. Fleet Farm, for example, due to the zoning in Sioux City, was not allowed to put their signature silo because it stood too tall. Yes, we have a lot of rules. We make a lot of different decisions. The things you do are difficult. You have to try and please everybody. Good luck, guys. It isn't going to happen. You know that. I know that, and everybody else in this room knows that. But when I sit on my garden bench and watch the sunset, I don't want to watch a turbine turning. Where I live, I believe the hill to the west of me is the highest point in Woodbury County, which would make the most sense for putting a turbine in. The Buffalo Ridge up to the north is the landmass that first in Iowa was used for wind energy because of its height, its positioning, prevailing northwest winds, and I drive up there and it's ruined Iowa, in my opinion. I want to see a beautiful Iowa. I grew up in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin has a lot of trees. Iowa doesn't. You wouldn't see these wind turbines in some of these other beautiful, beautiful areas. Yes, I do believe landowners should have a right to do what they want with their land. But there also is a responsibility as a citizen to respect your neighbors and to respect the beauty of what God put on this, on our county in particular. Thank you, that's all I have.
Good evening. I'm Kim Brower. I live at 2163 220th Street, Bronson, Iowa. I have been blessed to have grown up in the Les Hills, and I would ask you guys to please consider extending the setback. When we look at Woodbury County compared to a lot of other counties in the state, we are not always them. We are blessed to have a geological treasure here that people have talked about. We are different. We can't compare ourselves to all the other counties necessarily that have wind farms in them. We have something unique. I treasure that view when I drive home. I live right on the cusp of the bottom ground and where the Les Hills start. I live up on a hill, and I pray that my view of the Les Hills and their geological treasure stays the same, and people around the area get to treasure that as well. We've had friends come into the community that had never been here, and they were actually going to Destination Iowa, a friend of ours, and they came to the Omaha Zoo, and I made a point to tell them, take a look when you're traveling across the state to get to your destination. You only see these here in China. Please make the right decisions to protect that area and that treasure that we have. Thank you.
Anybody from the board that would like to speak on there?
Afternoon. My name's Ryan Thomas, 342 Main Street, Mobile. I've always been called flyover country longer than I've been alive. We didn't mind because we don't care what New Yorkers and Californians think of us. For the most part, we live in the country because we were raised there and just want to be left alone to raise our kids the way we were raised. We can't vote on anything pertaining to Sioux City because we don't live inside city limits. Fair enough. Maybe that should be reciprocated. We're the ones that have to deal with these windmills from start to finish because we're the ones that live there. My grandpa farmed the whole time I grew up, and when him and my grandma passed, my mom bent over backwards to keep all that ground in the family. It doesn't even pay the note, but she did it for her kids and her grandkids. It's pretty selfless. We keep hearing about these setbacks being at 2,500 feet, basically killing the wind energy, correct? Part of why she kept that ground together is because my dream's always been to build my family home on my grandpa's ground. These towers going up will kill that dream because everything will be inside that 2,500 feet setback or 1,250 feet setback. That's all I got.
Keith, could it possibly be that we have a show of hands, pro and con, just in an effort to expedite this?
That's what people are fine with.
I think we've got a pretty good idea of where the folks are. I mean, that's just my suggestion. And then maybe take a 5-minute break.
I know the city does that usually after 10 minutes of comments, so we've definitely exceeded that.
I concur with that and the break.
All right, anybody like to speak, I guess, or show of hands in favor of increasing the setbacks? Go ahead and show your hand. All right, and then those in favor of a smaller setback or keeping where it's at? All right. All right.
Are we recessed for 5 minutes then, Mr. Chair?
Personally, I'd like to finish our reading. We also have our 4:45 set time that we're greatly exceeded. So, any board members like to make their comments on this item?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I don't think the monetary argument in favor of wind turbines is such a simple calculation. There's an offset to it. Taxes go up, but at the same time, I do believe that property values go down. Currently, we're beholden to property owners as a board. Introducing these large scale would make us beholden to subsidize energy in a form. Woodbury County has a much more active county fair than other counties. We are much more densely populated than other counties. We have a much larger conservation area than other counties. The argument of what can you allow a landowner to do is for one generation, but introducing turbines is something that represents a permanent change of the culture, of the scenery, of the quality of life for future generations as well. and it does not remain a personal decision for long. I appreciated Bev's comments on that. And in addition to the long-term view of what interests are going to be represented in the county going forward. So for that reason, I will support the increase of the setback to 2,500 feet.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to address, it's been brought up a couple of times tonight, why is this even being revived now? I was in Iraq last year when you all went through the ordinance process, but when the public speaks, we listen. And it's rare, if you follow our meeting staff, 5 or 10 people here, much less than 85. It's rare to have a petition with 70 people, much less 700, or to have a Sioux City Journal poll. I know it's not scientific, but talk about 82% being in favor of an increased setback. So I think it's incumbent upon us, when there's new information, I think we've gone from theory to reality, and these things coming about now, that we listen to you. And that's one of the reasons we're holding 3 public hearings. I do also want to address, I've heard it said, well, you're safe at 1,250 feet. I disagree. Our county engineer provided us with 2 studies, one that showed that it's 1,148 feet, but there was another one that he provided from Denmark's Department of Energy. Now, they don't have any vested interest. In fact, they would probably be wanting as much wind energy as is possible, and it says 2,296 feet. So in the military, you don't walk on the edge of the cliff. You stay 10 meters away. You don't go in a 1-to-1 battle. You go with the odds 3-to-1. In other words, you increase the margins because of safety. And therefore, 2,500 seems reasonable to me if we're talking about a safety factor. And I also just want to mention this. I asked 15 to 18 months ago, when Mid-American first came to this county board, what would we be receiving in terms of property taxes? No one from Mid-American sat down and negotiated with us, the CF Industries did in their $2.1 billion investment, to structure any deal. It was that they were going to pay utility replacement tax, which is a pittance or next to nothing, or we were going to take no taxes at all in the first year, and then 5%, 10%, up to 30% into perpetuity. No other business receives that kind of treatment. And so I raised the issue. I think we can locally assess this. I believe our assistant county attorney thought that that was a valid interpretation of the law. Mid-American went to the legislature and made sure that we could not locally assess these. And so to me, we look at the cost-benefit analysis and the fact that public sentiment and what I think the vast majority wants, safety, the adverse considerations, and now the cost-benefit analysis, I'm in favor of the increased setback to 2,500.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. I didn't want my batteries to run dead for sitting here so quiet for so long. This, you people, is why I brought this back to the board. Because when we went through this ordinance a year-ish ago, it was recommended that the setback, if I recall correctly, and I do have a bad memory, but 600 feet sounds right, and that we seemed to be convinced that 600 feet was adequate at the time, and we settled at 1,250. But here's the thing. I remember having a conversation, but I can't remember who it was with, honestly, that I don't want to look at 100 or more wind turbines, but that's not my call. I'm here to represent, as the rest of us are too, to represent the people that are sitting in this room, one direction or the other. And I do remember one conversation that I had was, nobody seems to remember that there's now 2, there was 4 coal-fired power plants sitting along the river. You don't even notice them unless you're going by on the interstate. I have yet to find somebody that wants to stare at 90 to 100 and some plus wind turbines out there, blinking lights, flickers, this and that and the other thing. So again, the question was, why are we entertaining this ordinance again? It's because of you folks. I support the 2,500-foot setback. I'm done.
So, you want to say something, or you want me to? I can go first. My mic's on. Oh, no, Mike.
I've got a red light,
Okay.
not green.
Flickery?
Is your battery back on?
I think it's fake. You go.
Okay, I'll turn mine on. All right, so basically, and I'll go way back, my position in zoning hasn't changed much over years. It's not going to change today. I will not support increasing the setbacks to 2,500 feet. It doesn't matter, you got your 3 votes. But it's on principle. Personally, I have never been a fan of zoning in general, whether it had been at the city of Sioux City when I was on the council there. Many people were interested in Agenda 21 at that time and how, what they called the tyranny of zoning. And quite frankly, I think zoning is still tyranny in government. There was Federalist Paper 51 where John Jay, or excuse me, trying to think now, I said the wrong guy, but he talked about the tyranny of the majority over the few that is allowed, and I feel like that happens in zoning. But you know, if you know in the same regards that I'll have your back when it comes to you know, ag operations in general, I do feel like taking a vote on something like this is a foot in the door to future regulations on agriculture in general, whether it be CAFOs, fertilizer being used, or allowed equipment in general. All these arguments can be made the same, and I will have your back then. I will not support those kind of zoning requirements, restrictions in those cases either, and that is my position.
Yeah, that was my mindset as well. At what point, on what issue, are you no longer willing to cede your autonomy to the local governing board? On what's your issue? Because on this issue, we've got 5 or 6 people in here that just want to make a choice what to do with their own land. And I understand that the worst part of this issue is that we no longer live in a country where, by and large, neighbors, maybe more people think bottom line versus quality relationships with their neighbors. And I think that's a sad commentary maybe on where we are as a culture, and where it would be really important for us to heal as a culture is where 85 people don't have to show up on a Tuesday afternoon to ask a board to make a decision on regulation, because before it ever gets to that point, people can sit down at the dinner table and discuss it and talk about, I really don't want this thing. I really don't want you to put this thing up on your property because it's going to impact me. I mean, when are we going to return as a culture to being able to have that conversation around the dinner table and work that out without subjecting that decision to a higher governmental authority? And I think Keith said it very, very well. If you're willing to accept regulation on this issue, are you opening up the door to regulation on other issues as well? And I think that's a very, very slippery slope. I understand that the government has a role to play in trying to resolve those conflicts. But the libertarian in me just wants Uncle Sam and Uncle Justin just stay the hell out of it and let private citizens decide on this kind of stuff.
Can I make just one comment?
I think we're good to close it unless it's really pertinent.
I just want to say one thing. I'm appreciative of this board and this public that we can have these disagreements and we can do it so respectfully. I think that's one thing that everybody in here ought to be commended on tonight, and this board. We're going to walk away from this, friends. The only comment I would make is what we're doing, if it's 1,250 or it's 2,500, is regulating. So whether somebody says, well, it's 600, it's 1,000, it's 1,250, it's 2,500, nobody's arguing whether regulation, if you're arguing for 1,250, you are arguing for a regulation. just a different one. So just a nuance of perspective, but that would be my closing.
Although one regulation eliminates an ability to have a property right, where another is just setting guidelines essentially and rules, so.
You could still have them, just not as many. That's the only point I would make.
All right, so I'll move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Do we have a motion for item 8C?
I will move approval of the first reading of the ordinance amendment to move the setback to 2,500 feet.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Taylor. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Say nay, nay, and that will pass 3-2. And we will do a recess before item 9. Just 5 minutes if you can.
Thank you.
No, we should have to do 3 readings.
Hey, Keith, I appreciate it. Sometimes you got a packet for Matthew, Keith. I didn't realize that you could get up and speak. I got a question I'm looking around. We started at 2 months ago and still people in our west, they kind of come looking at me, top far away, same as Hawks. Like Woodbury County now, you can search Hawks. Yeah, I mean,
Well, you're REC out there, aren't you?
I'm the last Mid-American.
How are you?
Second to last. You know when
We told you
We
we
ain't
put
done.
numbers up. I know, we're gonna keep coming, but we did that in 7 days. I mean,
Good on you guys.
There's no money, I mean, it was just us driving around, you know.
Well, and again,
And we got more sheets we haven't turned
I
in
know
yet.
you guys are working hard.
We are.
I know that.
So,
Cliff.
How you doing? Looking good.
Well, you're looking good. You're looking good.
Wow. Daniel got it. Oh, yeah. I'm sure it's a permanent thing. Because my kids are. Yeah, my stuff.
I appreciate those guys that keep brought this to attention to people, and I appreciate you bringing it back.
Thank you.
Get up and yell, ready?
What's that?
Get up and yell.
Yeah, it's time to get back, guys. We still have business. Let's go. All right, so we have our 4:45 set time. That is about an hour and a half late. 9A, Community and Economic Development, public hearing on proposed zoning ordinance map amendment. Go ahead.
Yes, this is for Mark A. Livermore and Michelle M. Livermore. They filed a zoning ordinance map amendment to rezone their property in the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 30, Arlington Township, of an unassigned portion of parcel 894430300008 from the agricultural preservation to the agricultural estates zoning district.
Anybody be heard on the public hearing?
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. I'll move to approve the second reading of the ordinance.
Second.
And this is to approve it as the final reading. All right, so that's motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. I'll move to waive the third reading.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to 9D. Adopt the zoning map, can't read now. Adopt the zoning district map amendment to the zoning ordinance. I'll move it.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 11, thank you, Daniel. Presentation from Mid-American regarding wind turbine project.
Thank you. I was hoping more people would stick around for this, but they're on to other business. Yep, submit material.
There's two.
Are we limited on time?
Not really.
Okay, just want to make sure. While you're passing those out, just to give some context around our wind farm and our interests here. As you know, I'm sure most of you pay your bills to Mid-American Energy. So we're happy to serve this area in Woodbury County. And I'm sure everyone knows this, but there is no perfect form of energy out there. So Mid-American takes in all of the above approach. You referenced the coal plants we've got south of town, and those are
I worked there for 22 years.
I know, very important to us. And, there's, just because the wind turbines are coming doesn't mean those plants are going away. You still need to fill the gaps with something, so Mid-American takes that all-above approach. But that does not mean that we haven't been able to take advantage of wind for our customers in a beneficial way. Iowa has a great domestic energy resource, and that's wind. Some of that material you'll see, Iowa has a great wind resource, again, that we've been able to take advantage of to the benefit of our customers. Our customers have the 11th lowest rates in the nation, 33% below the national average, in large part due to our investment in wind energy. Iowa ranks third in the nation for installed capacity. As the point I made before is wind generation is not new. A lot of safety concerns were brought up. I'm not sure if anybody can name a safety incident in Iowa related to a wind turbine. We've got wind turbines as close as 1,000 feet to houses. We've been operating turbines for over 20 years. And thankfully, with our safety culture and the way we operate things, and across the industry, this is applicable, any safety incidents are few and far in between. And we haven't had one, thankfully, with any injury to any resident or neighboring person in the area. We hope to keep that zero record going as long as we can. So a lot of the concerns that were brought up, I think hopefully they can be laid to rest with real-life facts and history here of how we operate, how we site turbines. Again, wind isn't new in Iowa. There's about 6,000 wind turbines in Iowa in about half the counties around the state. So the first wind project, again, was installed, in the late 1990s. So there's a lot of history there of safe operation. Just to give you some context, Mid-American ourselves has about 3,400 of those wind turbines. Again, very proud of being able to install those on behalf of our customers and keep those rates low and keep that renewable energy up, fill in the gaps with other resources such as coal, natural gas, and nuclear. We are alone in 32 counties and are proud that, we're not only benefiting our customers, we are benefiting the communities that we have these projects in. 32 counties. We're almost in a third of the counties, Mid-American alone. Again, not a new technology. Safety concerns, well known. We've paid approximately, just this last year, as an example, $37 million in landowner easement payments, $36 million in property tax payments to these counties. People kind of question, why would anybody sign up? Well, 4,000 people have signed up with us. They continue to sign up with us. We installed our first turbine about 20 years ago. They've seen them before. They continue to sign up with us. They know the benefits of wind in the state of Iowa, wind for our customers. So that's just a more high-level perspective of Mid-American's stance on this. We understand all the safety concerns, all the siting requirements, sound, shadow. We've got statistical studies, reports we can hand into you to hopefully ease your concern. And before, I'll let Will get into the specifics of the Siouxland Wind Farm and our $1.4 million investment to date in that project. 60 landowners, over 11,000 acres signed up. Those people aren't going to show up and be in the crosshairs to this. So hopefully you're considering those people as well. And I would think, we've got 2 more hearings left. My goal would be where we can, I like the comments, Supervisor Wright, where we can work something out.
Eloquent.
Yeah, eloquent. Yeah, that was used before, and it's appropriate. But I think, I'm a part of a lot of these hearings, and I don't think it's appropriate where you pit people against each other either. I think there's a way that we can make this work in the county, where maybe everybody will have to take a step back in their stance a little bit, where everybody can be happy. And we're here to provide information, let you know what can be workable for those people who do want that in the county. There's a lot of them, not here, like I said before. But we're willing to work with the county, the residents, the board to come up with something reasonable that can work. Maybe not everyone's going to get exactly what they want, but we can make a wind project work here and satisfy both parties. I think we can do that. I said a 1,500 to 1,600 foot setback before. We can work with that. There's also another approach that manages multiple wind turbine models. You can go 3 times the height. So a height is 500 to 600 feet. That's 1,500 to 1,800 feet. That's something we can work with and allow the people who have signed up already. We've made payments to already, and the future people who we know will sign up with us. There's a lot of interest. Where they can realize those benefits as well for their families. So I'll let Will get into the Siouxland project specifics.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, so page 11 kind of starts getting into some of the Siouxland Wind Farm specifics. As I stated last December, we had sent out invites to approximately 500 landowners in our initially recognized project boundary. We had some attendance, approximately 120 people that night, kind of just listening to it, and a lot of these facts were kind of relayed to them at that time. We continue to talk with them since. So anticipated size of the project is about 370 megawatts. The number of turbines that would equate out to is about 90 to 140 approximately. I know one of the constituents in a prior meeting had brought up that they would like to see transparency with Mid-American regarding the model of wind turbine that they were proposing to put in the county. Yes, unfortunately right now we do not know. Obviously a lot of these projects are years in advance. I don't think a lot of people know what car they're going to buy years in advance, let alone investments such as this. So that is a part of this process. We are talking with suppliers, trying to procure those materials. So we can give ranges on what those models would look like, but we do not have a definitive answer at this time. Those ranges are listed below. So between 499 feet tip height, that's from the ground to the top of the blade at its highest point, to 591 feet. So as the years have gone on, turbines have gotten slightly bigger, gotten more efficient. They've been able to utilize wind energy much more efficiently. Another point that we've hit on with landowners is the landowner payments. We project landowner payments directly to landowners that participate in the project to range anywhere between $76 million and $92 million over the life of the project. Also in relation to that, county tax payments, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Over the life of the project, we would anticipate paying approximately $150 million in total in county taxes, and I believe Dennis Butler actually verified that with me as well. So,
Can I just clarify something on that too?
Yeah.
That's about 2.6 to the county and the rest was to the school districts. So.
Correct. So jobs, to Supervisor DeWitt's point, Neil has been providing jobs and stable energy to this county for a long time. You yourself had worked in Neil for 22 years. This does not put that in jeopardy, as my colleague had mentioned. Neil, we take an all above approach to our energy delivery to our customers. This does not threaten Neil. We plan on utilizing it as long as we can. This would only supplement the energy that we would be serving to our customers. The life of the project, be 40 years. I kind of touched on that. In relation to jobs, though, 10 to 12 permanent jobs, approximately 300 temporary jobs during the height of construction. And then I had also touched on earlier about 11,400 acres signed to date. We continue to talk with these landowners. We've been talking with them since December. Obviously, there's a lot of hesitation, rightfully so, from landowners when someone comes in their kitchen and sits down with them and starts asking if they'd like to put wind turbines on their land. There's a lot of questions that have been answered over 8 months with all these landowners. And they continue to be answered, and we continue to sign easements because a lot of people are deciding what to do with their own property and what is in their best decision. Next page is the project area, page 12. I know that a lot of people have kind of touched on the beauty of Woodbury County. I grew up here. I know the beauty of Woodbury County. I graduated from Mobile, Iowa in 2013. I realize it's a very beautiful part of this state. That project boundary is not near the Loess Hill boundary that was taken into consideration when initially putting together this boundary, along with several other considerations that were put into it prior to initiating any of our studies. So this is not haphazardly done. We do realize that there are some very sacred areas that locals have and that they feel are very beautiful and should be protected. We understand that. That's one of the differences of being Mid-American and having employees in the area and being locals, is that we aren't just going to haphazardly do something in order to do it. We try to take everybody's accounts into consideration and try to do it with as much direction as we possibly can. Kind of touching on some things I talked about earlier. So I know some of the constituents had brought up concerns about birds, migratory paths for bald eagles, other raptors such as that, also bats. That's something that didn't really get touched on, but something that we do consider. So below on page 13 is a list of some of the environmental studies we do. A lot of these are actually, well, one of them is actually a 2-year study, which we've already initiated. So we've had surveyors on county roads doing golden eagle, raptors, other large birds. They do survey points every single month for 24 months. Falls in line with the survey protocol that will follow the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Eagle Conservation Plan guidelines. So we have to abide by that, and we do our diligence in order to get this done correctly, which again points to not haphazardly placing these throughout the county. In addition, we also do small bird surveys. We do raptor nest searches throughout the area to determine if there's any active or inactive raptor nests. We do bat surveys for suitable bat habitat, and if this is deemed suitable and we have any acoustic studies that come back positive, we can do mist netting to determine the quantity of any bats that might be endangered in the area as well. We take that into consideration when also siting. We follow setback guidelines in relation to those habitats. Environmental safety analyses, wetland surveys, cultural resource surveys, and we also consult the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Iowa DNR. Additional studies on page 14, I touched on a little bit earlier, in regards to the setback. So the maps I had provided earlier from Snyder, which portrayed the county's setbacks and what to change from 1,250 feet to 2,500 feet would do. I touched on briefly that that is only a small bit of what we actually take into account prior to placing any wind turbines. So there are other things that are taken into account, such as microwave beam paths that identify broadcast, land mobile, wireless, public safety, microwave radar, and other RF spectrum users within the designated area. There's also public safety radio and land mobile studies that we do as well. Identifies facilities within the impact area, which would be the wind farm. Associated with public safety, land mobile services, and other fixed services licensed by the FCC, whose transmitter sites are inside the project area within 1 mile boundary of the project area. We also have to take into account aviation studies. From the FAA, we have to take into account their consultation as well. We also have to take into account sound and shadow studies, as we had mentioned. That is something that we use to actually help microsite a lot of our turbines to help mitigate disturbances to any adjacent landowners. And then we also have to take into account geotechnical studies as well. And then page 15, kind of the last page, is some common concerns and talking points that we've heard over 20 years of operating commercial wind farms in Iowa. So area taken out of ag production, I know this has been a talking point tonight. So on average, the area taken out of production after construction is complete for the 40-year life of the project would be between 1/2 and 3/4 of 1 acre per turbine. That includes access roads and foundation and footprint of the turbine itself. Facility location, so Mid-American consults with landowners. If we anticipate on putting a turbine on their property, we consult with them where that turbine could potentially be best suited for them, along with any access roads that they think would be better off following either terracing or fence lines, etc., how they like to plant. We take a lot of that into consideration when placing the turbines. Aerial spraying, I know that's been brought up a lot as well. People claim that you cannot aerial spray around turbines. That is factually inaccurate. We actually have a lot of aerial spraying that goes on amongst our wind farms, actually driving through Attic County. Last week, I saw an aerial sprayer going through our wind farm. So there are provisions in the language that allows landowners to contact Mid-American so we can feather out the blades, shut the turbines down for a set period of time so they can come and spray their crops. A lot of times that actually doesn't even happen. They just go out and do it. So we do take that into account with landowners, and it's something that we have heard a lot, but I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that it's something that we address. Tile and property damage. So in the agreement with all these landowners, we have to repair any damage to tiles or fencing, other property impacted by construction, along with any crops that are taken out of production during the construction process. So we make the landowner whole on all those accounts. Decommissioning, this is something that you guys are well aware of. It is in your ordinance, but I wanted to just say it. There is obviously a lot of concern around decommissioning, and there would be an agreement if moved forward per the permit that would be approved by the board, there'd have to be a decommissioning agreement that would go along with that, that the county would have to stipulate how that would work. Road use agreement, kind of the same. There's been a lot of discussion, I think tonight as well, about secondary roads taking a lot of wear and tear and damage on all of our projects. New construction, repowering, we enter road use agreements with the county. We would do the same with you. It's in your guys' ordinance, I believe, where we basically take ownership of the roads for a set period of time during that construction process, be in charge of grading, water trucks, mag chloride, calcium chloride, however you county does it, I suppose, along with bringing in any gravel to replace that and maintaining those county roads as well. Birds and bats, kind of already touched on it a little bit, but that's a concern that we've heard from a lot of people. And then the last thing I wanted to kind of touch on that isn't on the slideshow is the comment made about property values. So there was actually a study that was done by the Berkeley National Lab that I can probably bring for you guys next week and submit. Basically did a statistical analysis over the entire U.S. There was actually a few wind parks from Iowa in that statistical analysis. And they did not find any material change in property values for the thousands of properties that they did their statistical analysis on. So a lot of that is, at this point, kind of conjectured. There's been no material findings from some studies, and there has been from others. I don't think there's really a definitive answer to that question. And then the last page is just kind of a timeline. So we have a pretty aggressive timeline for the project. We anticipate to try to get it into service by 2024. We've been obtaining easement agreements since the beginning part of the year, and we anticipate to do that throughout the rest of the year to determine project viability. All these easements are voluntary from landowners, and that's what determines whether or not the project is viable, is whether or not the community is willing to accept it and people are willing to sign agreements with Mid-American Energy. As I've stated, we've already started our environmental studies. Those go on for 2 years. And then initial turbine layout, we hope, if everything goes well and landowners have signed up for the project, we can start that process. But we have to have enough landowners to be able to site turbines. We can't just place them on lands that we don't have under easement. So final project layout will come sometime in 2023, and we anticipate construction sometime in early to mid 2024. So with that, I am done, and I thank you for your time.
Mr. Chair? I don't know that anyone is saying the company's plan is haphazard. I haven't heard that. Nobody's saying you're just willy-nilly putting them there, but I did spend some time at the fair last week, and I visited the booth once, I think, briefly. I didn't want to be at the folks' booth that was at the fair to try and sway anything, but I was asked by someone that visited the booth I was working to ask the question, and I think it's fair because in theory, in practice, I do literally at least believe in every form of energy there is, all of the above, whether it's nuclear, coal, I believe in it. However, there's things about all of it that bring questions, and one of them that I was asked to ask you folks, if you have the answer, is at what point does a wind turbine become carbon negative? To the point of Ms. Widman that was here earlier.
Yeah, appreciate your comments and attendance to the fair. You know, Will was also at the fair and had some good stories to tell about people from neighboring communities who participate in our wind farms, and we're very happy with what we've done. You know, Plymouth, Ida, that areas. The carbon-free part, next week we'll find you that study, but I can't remember if it's 6 months to 18 months, somewhere in there, as to when it makes up its carbon footprint. Every kind of energy form needs production. Every kind of energy form needs deliveries, uses fuel. That's not unique to wind. But so it was 6 to 18 months, and we'll find that report. But there is a report out there about basically when it becomes carbon neutral, when it makes up for its carbon footprint.
I'm not trying to do a gotcha moment here. I'm not. But I mean, when constituents as thick as they were, and the county fair is full of them, I would like the answer myself.
Yep, we'll follow up and provide that next week. We'll have there's a lot of things that got brought up, obviously, that we can cite reports to counter, and we'll plan to do that next week and hand in a lot of information to hopefully ease your concerns, that being one of them.
Thank you.
Happy to answer questions from anybody else too. Just wanted to.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
First is this, this, I guess, graph here showing the increasing reliance on renewable energy.
Not reliance. So Mid-American has a Green Advantage program. It's basically a lot of companies have sustainable energy goals. A lot of our customers have sustainable energy goals, whether you're a commercial customer, a residential customer, whatever that is. And we retire the benefits of our renewable energy on behalf of all of our customers just by simply paying your bill. So that represents the Green Advantage program in hitting 100% in 2025 with some additional bill. This last year, we're able to provide 88.6%, I think is right, our energy to our customers from renewable energy resources. And at the same time, this is probably the most important part, reliability is high, the lights rarely go out, and rates are low. So we're able to, we want to keep all three of those in mind, sustainability, reliability, and cost. Those are all important to our company. Hopefully, by paying your bills, you realize that. If you compare us to other utilities in the state, we want to hit all the above approach. Like you said, on the type of energy we supply to our customers, we want to hit that three-legged stool as well. But so in a few years, we hope to hit 100% with that program.
So with this growth, how much of that is due to wind versus solar?
We have over 7,000 megawatts of wind in Iowa and only 141 megawatts of solar. Wind resources, great. This year, you've probably noticed that. It's been tremendous. There's a wind resource map in there. It shows you basically the western half of Iowa, northwest Iowa is a tremendous wind resource and a domestic wind resource we're able to take advantage of.
That was my second question, is how much does that play into either the number of turbines or the amount of energy produced?
The second part of that, the amount of energy produced. So the better the wind resource, the more productive your wind turbines are. So the wind turbines on the western side of the state are going to be more productive than the turbines on the eastern part of the state. If you look at that map, it kind of fades away as you go east, that wind resource.
Is there any change in viability of a project fundamentally in the areas with the lowest wind speed? Does that make it just financially untenable, or because of?
Not necessarily, because there's other things that play into it, like electric prices, transmission congestion, and that type of thing. So some of those are a little better the further you go out east, but it still pays off to build on the western side of the state just because the wind resource is so great. And Mid-America doesn't have to pay for that fuel, like we do coal, gas type of thing. So the more wind, the better for this generation.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, and if you can't speak to this tonight, maybe next week, if you have anything, to what extent does Mid-American explore means by which some of those negative impacts could be addressed for neighbors? I mean, you're working with the landowner. What kinds of discussions have taken place to try to, lighten that blow on folks that don't want the red flashing lights, that don't want the noises, anything being explored to address those neighbors and to minimize some of those negative impacts?
I've got a lot of stuff to talk about there. Will said we're not a Florida power company. We're from the state. We serve this area. Our employees live with the community. We care about the community. We approach the neighboring landowners. First thing, we don't just forget about them. We know that some with acreages can't place wind facilities on their property or run cable through their property and realize the benefits of the wind turbine. So we offer them, as a starting point, some financial compensation to be in the project, even though you can't host facilities on the project. So we approach them before we even build the project. Sound and shadow studies, we touched on those. We go through thorough sound and shadow studies to make sure, a lot of counties in Iowa have certain thresholds you have to be at or below for the number of hours, shadow hours a day, or the maximum sound. And so we make sure we are at that level or below with all of our wind turbine siting. So we talked about, in the current ordinance still, there's a 1,250-foot setback. To us, I mean, that's almost, meaningless, we'll probably never cite that close just because of the sound and shadow studies we do. And that's where I think the closest we would ever get is like the 1,500 to 1,600 foot mark, where it'd minimize those impacts to the neighbors, sound and shadow. So that's a big part of our siting practice, and we move the chess pieces around to make sure we minimize all those impacts on the neighbors. The road conditions, someone brought up school, but we always meet with a local EMS, we meet with the local schools prior to construction. We make sure we're not having traffic when the school buses are running. We maintain the roads with graders, water trucks, mag chloride in front of houses. So we know the construction impacts of the community, and we address those as well. Someone brought up the red flashing lights. Currently, there's technology coming out that we are going to explore, make sure it's safe. We don't want to put the pilots in danger or anything, but it basically is a radar system that picks up a plane when it's coming in at a low elevations, then turns the lights on. When it leaves the project, it turns the lights off. So we are going to implement one of those projects later this year, as long as it's, safe and viable. We'll continue to implement those in the future, and that eliminates the lights 98% of the time.
And is that cheaper than installing a little red blinking light at the top of every one of those?
You still have to install those, because when the planes get close to the project, you have to turn them on.
Like the radar's like a trigger to turn them
Yep.
on. Actually, that's,
Yep.
I was curious on that, because I was gonna ask us, like, could you just even just design a light that shoots the beacon up? And so I was out at a party in Anthem the other night, driving back home. It's really interesting because, like, your headlights are the only light. Like, there's a random farm light occasionally, but mostly the county is like pitch black at night until you start getting to the point where you can see Sioux City and there is like a glow of light because everyone's got house lights on. I mean, there's light pollution everywhere in Sioux City,
Yep.
right? There's nothing out in the county.
Yep.
So I could see where if there was pitch black before and all of a sudden that red light it is going to be annoying. But like what, could you just make it more of a beacon that shines straight up? I mean, I get how light is, though. Light bends, light.
And we realize, people don't want to look at those. That's why we're going to invest in that. And we're going to test it out in 2023 at one of our projects. Hopefully install it late this year, early next year, test it out in 2023. If it works, it doesn't cause safety concerns, that'll be a standard installation and would be for this project as well. The FAA determines how the lights are designed, how they flash, the strobe intensity, all that stuff, so we don't have much control over that part of it. But they are also starting to approve these systems. So they recognize it as well, and that's an investment we want to make in consideration of the community.
I still don't miss the riverboat lights. I don't know if anyone remembers those, but any other? Do you remember that? I mean, those you'd see anywhere in town. Oh. Yeah. So.
Anything else? We appreciate your consideration. We'll answer questions during the hearings, in between the hearings, whatever you guys want. We hope there is some middle ground.
Anybody has any questions for him here tonight, please meet upstairs or something because we got a few more items and we got to lock the doors, so.
Can you receive these documents, please?
Oh, sure, yeah, move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to item 12. John Malloy, you have waited.
Just want to commend John for requesting to go after all that, so.
So what sort of IT do you want to put on top of these wind turbines, John?
Would please the board, I'm not going to talk setbacks or zoning.
It would please the board.
So item 12 is approved to purchase equipment for phase 1 and 2 of the LEC, which includes new switchgear, access points, firewalls, technical room, surveillance, network cables, cable management, and UPS. Go ahead.
That's the brunt of the technology scheduled for the new law enforcement center. The crux of coming this early is our network gear. There's a 30 to 52 week lead time for delivery. So that puts us, as somebody said earlier, walking on the edge. We're walking on the edge right now with that gear if it comes in at 52 weeks. So we can get the warranty, startup of warranty delayed till about that time frame, till next. So if it does come in 2 or 3 months, it'll sit there for 6 months, but the warranty does not start till
till we put in service.
Go ahead.
So I'm appreciative of the authority of staff. I trust everything. The only question I always have is this within the budget or the scope of what did these bids come back and they're within, and maybe that's a Dennis question or an authority question.
Yeah, aren't these just the estimates?
This is the bid out costs and winning vendors are as follows.
Okay.
And approve the motion to purchase.
They originally had $170,000 in their budget that we did approve for this current year.
Okay.
It did come in a little higher, but we have a kind of a little bonanza here because we did budget $1,07,400 for demolition care facility. The bids came in very, very favorable.
Demolition of the what?
Prairie Hills.
Okay, gotcha, sorry.
Yeah, and did leave us $698,000 that we have already borrowed, anticipation of costing that much, so that frees up that money to be able to use for other CIP projects, and this would qualify.
But you can use that not
Yes. We just
be
have
at
a
any
hearing.
sort of bonding
We'll
capacity.
have a
on it.
hearing, pre-approval, we'll go through that part with the IRS, things like that.
So we have the funds to cover this, I guess is the bottom line, okay. And do we need to say where those are coming from tonight, or we're just approving the purchase and
Just say
the funds will
CIP
come from?
Projects,
Okay,
unallocated CIP funds.
okay. Thank you.
I will move to approve the purchase.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Hopefully it comes faster than our upgrade, huh?
For sure. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Item 13, Board of Supervisors, Matthew Young and Human Resources approve Hyman Law as Woodbury County's designated local legal counsel for collective bargaining and union relations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board previously approved a work group to review the RFPs that came to the county to provide legal services specific to collective bargaining and union relations. We received 3, and the work group met a couple of times. I've attached the proposal from Heidman Law Firm in addition to the financial impact as far as the hourly rates. I will say in the last few years, the time burden from the county has been much less than in previous years. The recommendation from the work group, the consensus recommendation is Heidman Law Firm. One of the reasons for that, a major reason, is the added cohesiveness and existing knowledge due to the fact that the same law firm already serves Woodbury County's HR department in the context of general employment questions, has done so for years. And so I think this was a healthy process. The last time Woodbury County did this for this purpose is unknown, which means it was at least 10, 20 years ago. And so the motion tonight, I'll move, is to approve Heidman Law Firm as Woodbury County's designated legal counsel for collective bargaining and union relations.
Second.
Motion by Ung, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? Yes, on the work group, would you say the group was divided, unanimous? Was it?
Oh, there's no one voicing support for any of the other options.
Sounds good. All right, any discussion or any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 14 from Board of Supervisors, Matthew Young, Secondary Roads. Approve the purchase of 6 new seats for county dump trucks with gaming funds, $5,344.89.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a use of gaming funds that the county has certainly done before to replace equipment, one-time costs like this. I think it's prudent in this case and would be appreciated by several of the drivers of these trucks because these trucks have a very long life. In the past were created with substandard seating that if you compare it to how it's currently made and the different sorts of people that sit in these trucks and how much abuse they go through every day on our gravel roads, you can see the pictures in the backup of just how decrepit some of these seats are. So this is I think it's a worthwhile expense because it plays in so much to the quality of work that secondary roads employees experience for the entire workday. And this is something I did hear when I met with their group and heard their concerns. So county engineer polled some of the different districts, came up with the highest needs, the trucks with the highest needs, and there are 6 of them in this amount. So I'll move to approve the purchase of 6 new seats for county dump trucks with gaming funds for $5,344.89.
Second.
Motion by Young, second by Taylor. Any discussion?
You've been grinning the whole time, so.
These pictures from a ride-along, or?
Yeah, no, I have not completed a ride-along
Okay,
as of
well,
yet.
I just thought that was my truck.
Let me change that support.
All right. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to item 15, reports on committee meetings. Go ahead.
So just had an open house. Sherry Ciani was kind enough to host with the DOT commission, and had a good talk with our county engineer on the interstate justification report and the potentials. I have asked Mark in the next couple of weeks if he would put in writing some of the expectations long-term as a follow-up to this morning's meeting, as well as a roadmap, no pun intended, for the next couple of years if the IJR is approved. What county responsibility is there? How much is that contingent on federal funding? And what sort of local participation will there be? I'd like to think that Mark will be here in 5 to 10 years, but he's assured me he will not. And so I'd like to have something in writing that says this is the recommendation, expectation. I don't know who will be here in 4 or 5 years, but that's.
I'm not announcing retirement, but.
I wasn't trying for you.
But, yeah, before this project moves too much farther down the road, we'll need to have 2080 agreements in place with the Iowa Department of Transportation. We're asking them to take on the design work, right-of-way acquisition, and construction supervision of the project, which, with it being involved with the interstate, that's not a job we take on with our staff anyway. We also want to make sure that we have agreements with the communities, primarily Salix and Sergeant Bluff, as we move forward with this project. Both are very interested in it. Sioux City initiated a number of years ago. Since it's in the rural area, back in 2015, Woodbury County ended up taking over the development of the project to get us to where we are today. I'm expecting an answer from Federal Highway within the next 30 to 60 days. We've been going through an interactive process in the last 8 months as they've reviewed the report and had questions. Our consultant, our DOT staff, and county staff have all been working to get those questions answered. We have turned in a revised final report that addressed all of the FHWA's concerns, and we're hopeful we're going to have an affirmative response to it. Then we really need to start working out how we're going to fund it.
And the total cost of this project potentially?
About $25 million.
So that's a lot of money, $25 million. And I just want to make sure that it's not thought that the county is going to TIF or bond out and then have this annexed in. I mean, there's some really key considerations. That's a lot of money. So that we have agreements in place and that we make any county participation potentially contingent on federal funding and get some of these things worked out rather than just go full steam ahead.
And speaking to both city staffs, and again, this isn't involving the decision makers yet, but in speaking to city staffs, I've told them that, you know, based on conversations that we had when Supervisor Taylor and Supervisor Ung were our representatives on the committee when it had its beginnings, I've taken a good deal of time trying to explain to to Sergeant Bluff and Sioux City exactly why the board has these concerns about that funding, so that the rural taxpayers aren't left holding the construction bill, and the cities are putting the surrounding ground around the interchange into an area where they're collecting those taxes, and we're never putting those bonds to bed. So that's something that we'll have to be getting board and Dennis involved with as we move forward. Once we have an affirmative response to the IJR, is to make sure we've got a funding agreement that doesn't leave county residents holding the bag.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Any others? Citizen concern, round two.
I just have more petition signature sheets, about another 12 or 13 here I'd like to add to the county record that I received as people left the building.
I move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Go ahead.
Other thing I just wanted to mention quick, I guess our Mid-America colleagues have left the building, but I had a couple of local Woodbury County EMS people come visit us at our fair at the booth, or our booth at the fair, and they emphatically said they are not in favor of this project because of the interference that these giant wind turbines would have with their 911 towers. I guess Ida County is having trouble with that. And I learned something here tonight from them that their turbine project is worse than I imagined. I was figuring, you know, they were going to put up, you know, 300, 330-foot towers. They were admitting here tonight over 500. That's insane. I can't even fathom that. That's got to be some of the biggest turbines on the planet. The other thing, I wish I had it here with me. I'm not a miracle worker, but as far as property values that they alluded to, I saw a study that was just done up in Canada. And this is pretty hilarious. But sure, property values within a wind farm don't seem to change much. But in the study in Canada, the farther you got away from the wind farm, the higher the property values became. A little ironic, isn't it? I would have liked to have heard their response to that. And then I'll just leave you with this. You know, they're having a cow about 2,500 feet, killing the project in Woodbury County. Again, my response to that would be that Woodbury County just is not right for it. They should build elsewhere. They got wind farms all over the state. There's a lot of other counties you can go visit. So why pick on us with our dense population? Thank you guys for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Sir, can you state your name for the record one more time for this
Yes,
item?
it's Daniel Hare,
Thank you.
2889 Humboldt Avenue, Hornick, Iowa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Nelson, 3773 108th Street, Correctionville. So I wanted to stay and listen to the other side. I think it's important that we do that. I was not able to attend the meeting that they had in Mobile. My dad did, a lot of my neighbors did. We've talked a lot about that. And so I wanted to just go through some of the things that they presented to you guys that I found erroneous. So when they talked about their Mobile meeting, I want you guys to be aware that they did not offer up any questions. They did a presentation and then they immediately exited. They did not allow any questions from the crowd. They did not allow anybody of their staff to stay behind and talk to people or ask any questions. So I think it's kind of silly that they tout this informational meeting and they never let anyone answer any questions. Why they did that, I don't know, but they did not take any questions. As far as their safety incidents that they touted, Iowa is relatively new as far as wind turbines. And a lot of these counties that they're in are in very low density, population density counties. In Iowa, 69 counties have a population of 20,000 or less. We have 99 counties. So, I mean, we have a lot of counties. And if you go down the list, I mean, we have probably 30, or the bottom 30 are well under 7,000 or 8,000. So when you have turbines in some of these very desolate areas, your probability for incident is pretty low just because there's not structures or people there to hit. You look at other places like Oklahoma, where there have been turbines longer, there are incidents. So I just wanted to bring that up. One thing they said when they said they work with landowners on placement, I was really upset with that. When they say they take information from the landlord on placement. We have a lot of family and friends that farm in Cherokee County. They have these big, beautiful square fields that we just dream about having in Woodbury County. They took no interest in placement. And what they mean by that is they're open for me to tell them, like, I think it would go here. And that's the extent of it. They still put it wherever they want. And honestly, when you talk to the residents that signed that petition, that's one of the biggest reasons that they don't want them here is because of the terrain we have and the terraces and the waterways. We kind of call it, it's a lot of monkey hills. And to put more obstructions in the way is just not appealing to landowners here. And so a couple of people that have signed turbines up that spoke tonight, they live in the northern part, close to Plymouth County, where the terrain is not much of a factor. Now, Mid-American is correct on saying that they will stay out of the Les Hills. I've seen the same map. My parents have the same map. My property is outside of their zone. So a lot of this information I've got from my parents with their packet. But the problem is we have, I think, 2 other companies that are also talking to residents here that have no concern for the Les Hills. So while Mid-America does, and I appreciate that, other companies don't. And so that's why, this is a countywide issue. We can't just, pass special favors for Mid-America and vice versa for any of the other ones. On the property values, I don't understand on that. I urge you to look up a name by the man of Michael McCann. He's a land appraiser from Chicago, specializing in ag land. He is used widely for county and state governments all across this country on these type of issues. And I've thankfully ran into someone yesterday that told me his name. Need to look up his readings. I'm hoping I can pass some on to the county engineer. But he has seen 23 to 43% decrease in property values depending on the state and situation. And he does a lot of work for government entities. He's not just a guy that just is freelance doing this. So we'll talk about that. And the last thing he talked about, that the red lights, I thought you asked a really good question, Keith, on that. They said that there's no technology they can change. Unfortunately, that is not true. In Illinois, actually, they require these, the red lights that only shoot straight up. So they basically, I don't know if they have some sort of a cover or lens on the outside so they do not shine out and up, because to the airplanes, that doesn't matter. They're flying at a certain altitude. They need to see, looking down. And so in Illinois, to keep lights out of people's homes, they require lights that shoot up rather than outward. And so that technology is available. I'm not sure why it couldn't be used here. But the last thing, talking with residents, doing all this door knocking when they said that, residents voluntarily sign up for this. I want you to be aware, and you can ask Sheriff Sheehan to back this up because he was there. We have a lot of elderly people that are approached ad nauseum from their people, even though they say no. They keep coming back to the door. They keep sending mailers. Sheriff Sheehan was in the booth when a lady was very disturbed at how many times staff had come out to her home and continued to push her to try to do this. I got a petition from a man outside of Lawton, elderly man, farmer, landowner. I asked him if he had signed anything. He said, no, but I don't really have a choice. And I said, well, why you have a choice? And he said, well, they keep asking me, and they've told me they've already signed everybody up around me, and so I really don't have a choice anymore. I had talked to some of his neighbors already in this process, and they aren't going to sign up. And so he's being fed wrong information to scare him or intimidate him into making a decision. And I just think that that's really wrong. And we heard that from a lot of people that came in the booth, which is why we had people who had even signed petitions already that signed our petition, or had signed easements, signed our petition, because they felt like they were kind of pushed into that everybody else around them already had it. And I just think that that's really poor business. And the other companies couldn't be doing that too, but a lot of these were in Mid-America's zone. So, but I just wanted to make those points on that. But we did have landowners that said that stopped by from other places that do have turbines with Mid-America, that they always pay their bills. They've always fixed the problems, that kind of thing. So on that, I have no doubt, and I have nothing to say, bad on that. But some of these other things I wanted to clarify because there's 2 sides to every story. So, but we'll probably see you next week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess anything else on the wind, it might be good to just say for the next hearing.
Sure. And I just want to say it was fresh in my mind tonight.
Sure.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Yep. Go ahead.
I just want to make one comment, not to beat this horse to death, but I am concerned about, at the very least, Mid-American has the good grace to come forward and do the presentation. So although it's clear where I stand on this side of the issue, I'm appreciative that they face the music. I am concerned that there's 1 or 2 other companies out there that are unnamed and faceless right now.
NextEra is one of them.
Yeah, that's a concern of mine. Just want to state that for the record.
The NextEra or Next Gen?
I've heard NextEra.
Okay.
That's all I got.
All right, any other board concerns? All right, we're adjourned.